He had no excavator, no engineering degree, no permission that meant anything. Below him sat a village where every household drew from a single well, where corn was breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and where rice appeared once a year, at New Year, because there was never enough water to grow it. His solution was a ditch, cut by hand into the side of a mountain, with hose, steel drills, hammers, and bamboo poles used for surveying. That first ditch failed. It took more than 10 years to fail. Today, 9,400 meters of channel cross, 3 mountains, 3 precipices, and 3 cliffs, and the village harvests more grain in a single year than it used to harvest in 15. The water was never far away. It sat in a river a few kilometers from the village. The problem was that a mountain stood in between, and the mountain was 1,300 meters high. So how does a farmer with an elementary school education succeed at something a decade of digging had already proved impossible? This is the story of Huang Dafa and the canal that took him 36 years. Caowangba sits in the mountains of northern Guizhou, in one of the poorest provinces in China. Clustered peaks, interconnected ravines, thin soil scattered across fragments of land too steep and too small to farm properly. The people here had been growing corn for generations, not by preference, but because corn is what survives when there is no reliable water. Rice needs standing water in a flooded paddy. Caowangba could not offer standing water anywhere. There was a local ballad about it, the kind of song that exists in a place only because the shortage lasted long enough to become part of the culture. Rice, in that song, is not food. It is a rare event. Picture a morning in the dry season. 2 hours of walking on rugged mountain track, one way, to fetch water. Then 2 hours back, carrying it. In a bad year, more than 100 days would pass without meaningful rain, and the single well would begin to fail. When the well failed, the harvest failed. When the harvest failed, families had 4 or 5 months of corn and then nothing. Every generation had accepted this. There was no reason to believe any other outcome existed. Then, in the late 1950s, one of them stopped accepting it. Here is the part that makes this story stranger than a simple drought. Guizhou is karst country. The rock beneath these mountains is limestone, and limestone does something specific with water. It lets it through. Rainfall does not sit on the surface and feed streams. It finds cracks, widens them over thousands of years, and disappears downward into caves and underground channels. The result is a landscape that looks green and mountainous and is functionally arid at the surface. Rain arrives, rain vanishes. The mountain is not holding anything back out of spite. It simply cannot hold anything at all. And that produced a chain reaction that nobody in the village had the tools to break. No surface water meant no paddy fields. No paddy fields meant corn as the only crop. Corn on thin karst soil meant low yields. Low yields meant no surplus. No surplus meant no cash. No cash meant no way to buy materials, hire expertise, or leave, and no reason for anyone from outside to invest in a place that produced nothing worth collecting. The village was not poor because of one bad decision. It was poor because of geology, and geology does not negotiate. 3 kilometers away, on the other side of a mountain called Lingbao, a neighboring settlement had water it did not need. Everyone knew this. It was not a secret, and it was not a discovery. The knowledge was useless. Knowing where water is and being able to move it are entirely different problems, and the second one had never been solved here. But in 1959, a drought hit that lasted almost the whole year, and a 23-year-old villager was elected to lead. Huang Dafa was born in Caowangba in November 1935. He had an elementary school education, and that was the highest level of schooling anyone in his family would reach for a long time. He would eventually have 2 sons and 6 daughters, and most of them left school early, partly because the fees were impossible, partly because a farm needs hands. In 1958, he became a production team leader. The following year, he joined the Communist Party and was elected to lead the village. He was 23 years old. He made 3 promises. Bring water to the village. Build a road. Get electricity. Consider what that sounds like from the outside. A young man in the poorest corner of a poor province, in a settlement with 1 functioning well, announcing that he intends to reverse the defining condition of the place. There is a documented reason he believed it was possible. In the 1960s, the red flag canal in Hainan province became national news. A 70-kilometer channel that local people cut into mountainsides to bring water into a chronically dry region. It was the proof he needed. Somewhere else, people with the same tools and the same poverty had already done it. If they could move water 70 kilometers, Caowangba only needed to move it a few. That was the reasoning. It was not wrong. It was just missing something. The plan was almost insultingly simple. Cut a channel along the flank of Lingbao Mountain, tap the river on the far side, and let gravity carry the water home. No pumps, no electricity, there wasn't any. No machinery, no concrete. To understand what they actually had, look at the surveying. A canal is only a canal if it falls at the correct gradient. Too steep and it destroys itself, too shallow and the water stops. Getting that right is the entire discipline of water conservancy. Huang's team measured the gradient using bamboo poles. For the channel walls, they had no cement, so they packed them with yellow mud. And because nobody on the team knew that a mountain canal needs a spillway to release floodwater and a cover to keep debris out, they built neither. The work itself was done by men roped to trees, lowered down cliff faces, swinging hose and steel drills at limestone hundreds of meters above the valley floor. Progress was measured in meters per day, sometimes less. This is the contrast that defines the whole story. On one side, a mountain, a river, and the physics of moving water across vertical rock. On the other, bamboo, mud, muscle, and a promise made by a 23-year-old. For a while, it looked like it might be enough. The first serious rain answered the question. Water arrived faster and heavier than the channel was built to carry. With no spillway to bleed off the excess, the flood filled the cut and pushed against walls made of packed earth. Mud does not resist moving water. It becomes moving water. Sections washed out. What had taken months to cut took minutes to erase. They repaired it. It failed again. This continued for more than 10 years. 10 years of climbing, cutting, hauling, packing, and watching weather undo it. At no point in that decade did the village receive a reliable drop from the canal. People left the project. It is hard to fault them. They had families to feed, and the evidence was overwhelming. Some concluded, out loud, that Caowangba would never have water. Later, when Huang tried to raise money for a second attempt, one villager's response was essentially, "You failed once. Prove me wrong." The critics had a decade of physical evidence on their side, and they were right about something important, just not the thing they thought. Huang did not conclude that the canal was impossible. He concluded that he did not know how to build one. That distinction is the hinge of this entire story. In 1989, at 53 years old, he volunteered at the township water conservancy station. Not as an official. As an unpaid apprentice, an old man in a room of technical work, learning gradients, drainage, and structural design from people less than half his age. He had an elementary school education, so he bought a dictionary and looked up the words he could not read. When he heard about a reservoir or a ditch being built in another region, he traveled to see how they had done it. This lasted about 3 years. Then, in the winter of 1990, he walked 100 kilometers to Zunyi city. It took 2 days. He arrived at the home of a former deputy director of the County Water Resources Bureau wearing canvas shoes with his toe coming through the front and asked for support. The Bureau's answer was conditional, show commitment. The villagers would have to raise 10,000 yuan themselves. The average person in that village lived on less than 100 yuan a year. They raised it. The local government contributed 60,000 yuan in cash, 190,000 kilograms of corn to feed the laborers, and one skilled construction worker. Everything else, explosives, hammers, the raw material for cement, the village supplied itself, carried in on shoulders because there was no road. In the spring of 1992, Huang led more than 200 people back into the mountains. The worst section was a cliff over 500 meters long and 300 meters high at a place called Care Rock. Surveying that stretch alone took 6 months. Huang tied a rope around his own waist and went over the edge first, the 56-year-old testing whether it would hold before asking anyone else to trust it. Crews slept in caves along the cliff to avoid the daily climb. 2.5 years later, the main channel opened. By 1995, the full system was carrying water. 7,200 meters of main canal, 2,200 meters of branches, across 3 mountains, 3 precipices, and 3 cliffs, serving 3 villages and more than 10 villager groups. Then the measurements arrived. Annual grain output in Caowangba rose from roughly 30,000 kilograms to close to 500,000. Rice paddy expanded to 48 hectares, around 67 football pitches of land that had never in living memory held standing water. And in that same year, 1995, the road arrived, and so did electricity. All 3 promises, 36 years after he made them. Nobody issued an apology to Huang Dafa. That is not how these reversals work. What happened instead was slower and more telling. The bureau that had never replied to his applications became a funder. The method that had been written off as a peasant's failed ditch became a project the county pointed to. The canal that villagers had mocked as a second attempt at a proven failure was renamed in his honor, the Dafa Canal. He was named a national model worker and later a model of the times. In 2018, a feature film based on his life premiered in Beijing. In June 2021, at 85, he received the July 1st Medal, the party's highest honor for its members, as one of 29 recipients nationwide. A bridge on the regional highway now carries the canal's name. The valley has been developed into a scenic area. He retired as village secretary in 2004 and was later made an honorary party secretary and a volunteer lecturer, telling the story to people who arrive by paved road. The same officials who once had nothing to offer him now bring visitors to see what he built without them. But this is where the simple version of the story ends. Water did not end poverty in Caowangba. 2 decades after the canal opened, roughly 1 in 5 families in the village still lived below the national poverty line. Grain output multiplied, incomes rose slowly. A canal solves a water problem. It does not solve remoteness, thin soil, or the absence of a market. The canal is also not finished, in the sense that no canal ever is. It carries silt. It develops leaks. Into his 80s, Huang was still walking its length with a hoe, clearing sediment and patching cracks, because a hand-built channel across a cliff face survives only as long as someone maintains it. And there is a cost in this story that no medal addresses. During the years of construction, Huang's daughter died, and so did his 13-year-old grandson, who developed meningitis and was gone before the family could get back from the worksite. His son later told a reporter that his father was not at home even when his sister was dying. In 36 years of work on those cliffs, not one member of the construction team lost their life. 2 members of Huang's own family did. That is the part that cannot be replicated and should not be recommended. Stand on the ledge at Care Rock today, and the channel is about a metre wide. Water moves through it quietly, at walking pace, 300 meters above the valley. There are no pumps, no electricity in the system, no moving parts at all. It works for exactly the reason it worked in 1995. The gradient is correct, and gravity is reliable. Below it, terraced paddies hold standing water in a landscape that geologically should not permit standing water anywhere. Children walk to school on a paved road. Lights come on at night. The single well that once rationed an entire village is a historical detail. The mountain did not change. The rock is still limestone, and it still swallows every drop of rain that falls on it. Nothing about the underlying problem was solved. One man simply cut a line across the face of it at the correct angle and let the water take the long way around. He has said that the water is his life, and that the canal is like his child. He is 90 now, and both are still there. The first ditch failed because he did not know enough. The second one holds because at 53, with an elementary school education, he decided that was a fixable problem.